Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back, too. I guess this... Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today on SportsGrid. Hope your Saturday is off to a great start. We're going to make it a little bit better for you as we review the daily fantasy slate in Major League Baseball with the games coming up in just a couple of hours. And then, of course, the afternoon and some of the evening games as well. So Davis and I will take a look at it. I'll roll off some of the names and the prices over on DraftKings, and then Davis will give you the full breakdown here on the show. All right, so let's get started here with the dual starting pitching matchup, which you got to have over on DraftKings, We're going to start off with Ben Brown of the Chicago Cubs, the converted relief pitcher who has been stellar in the Cubs rotation. 8,400, Kevin Gausman, who we talked about previously at 9,100. Sean Murphy is back for the Atlanta Braves and in the starting lineup. Make sure you confirm that later today. Paul Goldschmidt of the Cardinals is heated up at 4,200, and also Nolan Gorman at the second base position at 4,100. So Davis, naturally, a lot of this is going to revolve around the pitching, but Brown on the Cubs has been a great story. Started off in the bullpen, looks really good. I think still a work in progress, and I think we talked about it maybe last week or the week before. You don't know how many innings a guy like this is going to be able to go, but they may have found a diamond in the rough in the Cubs.
No, so this guy, Ben Brown, I'm surprised to see that his price has not adjusted all that much on DraftKings. You know, he was 8,300 for his start against the Reds. Actually did not do great there. But, he came in and priced at his very first start. He was $7,300 on DraftKings and has not been adjusted up all that much. The park factor is not particularly great here at the Cincinnati Reds. You obviously would prefer him to be at home in Wrigley, but I think that is more than adjusted for in his pricing. So I'm not all that worried about it. The one that I feel much more confident about is Gausman at Oakland. I actually don't think Gausman will get too owned here in daily fantasy. We've got Bradish against the Rays. We've got a pretty discounted Mackenzie Gore against the Braves. We've got Castillo going. Freddie Peralta gets a good matchup against the Detroit Tigers. I mean, even there are some cheaper options. Like, I would not be that surprised to see $6,600 Casey Mize get rolled out there a little bit. But Gausman has just such a long track record of being an above league average major league pitcher. Everyone kind of gets shelled by the Orioles. I don't think that's an indication that he's, terribly gave up 3 home runs in that game, but mowed down the White Sox, the Tigers, and the Rays in his starts before that. He's going deep into these games. So I think Gausman's probably my favorite, relative to ownership play of the day. Murphy sitting there, we'll see who ends up starting at catcher. I think that this is going to be Murphy's day, but d'Arnaud is only $300 more in salary. So I think you can just sub him in, no problem. I believe this lineup left a little bit of salary left over. So just choose your right-handed catcher of choice for the Atlanta Braves. Haven't said this very often on the show, but unbelievably good spot here today for the St. Louis Cardinals, I suppose, assuming that the wet wind out there stops. When I went outside to take the dog out here in St. Louis this morning, we got rained on a little bit. I'm assuming that it clears up for their start against Feltner, who, I mean, look, Craig, no disrespect. We don't like to disrespect anyone here on the program. One of the worst starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. Bad enough that Goldschmidt having this brutal season for him, 656 OPS, only 7 home runs for him on the entire season, 3 stolen bases. Kind of remember that used to be Goldschmidt's calling card, was he'd be the first baseman who would add some steals to your lineup for you. It's a good enough matchup that I am in to Goldschmidt, which I have not been very often this season. Some signs of life for him over the last 2 weeks. I'm much more in to Nolan Gorman. How about 14 home runs from your middle infielder, second baseman, the exact type of guy we like for daily fantasy, where he's going to leave you with some golden sombreros. He's going to have some 4 strikeout games, no question about it, but does come with that really strong power. So liking that Goldschmidt-Gorman correlation there at first and second base.
I believe there was one season with Arizona that Goldschmidt got off to this horrific start in the first half. I don't remember what year it was. I'm going to say maybe 19 or 18. There was one year where this happened to him, and then he exploded in the second half of the season. All right, let's get now to the corner infielder of Matt Chapman. Davis has got him penciled in at 4,800 for the Giants. O'Neal Cruz is playing well. He is at 4,300. McCutchen, again, check your lineup. Make sure he is in at 3,700. Melendez for the Royals at 3,500. And Jorge Soler of the Giants, 4,200, Davis, today.
Yeah, so I do really like this spot for the San Francisco Giants traveling to play at Andrew Heaney. The Giants, I believe, are able to go 9 right-handed batters. Not that Andrew Heaney is this terrible starting pitcher, that we're really trying to target, but just in general, you kind of let math in the aggregate do its work when you have a lineup that can get that right-handed against a left-handed starting pitcher. And Chapman is pretty cold start to the year, coming in from, probably not being on his normal offseason regimen, but is now up to 728 OPS, 8 home runs. He's having a fine week here, but in general, I like this spot for the Giants. If you wanted to look at some of the good team stacks today, I definitely think you could go in that direction. We got O'Neal Cruz, who it's a real eye of the beholder situation. Is he having a good year? Is he having a bad year? The counting stats are definitely there. 5 stolen bases, 9 home runs, in 215 plate appearances. Maybe you wish he stole a little bit more. It's not a huge deal there, but the strikeouts remain pretty high. But against a low strikeout pitcher like Woods Richardson, that's kind of the spots where you want O'Neal Cruz. When they're facing another team's 4th and 5th starter, you really anticipate him doing well in these matchups. And how about an all-time turning the clock back season? Andrew McCutchen returns to kind of, where he came from. It's so cool. 8 home runs, 710 OPS. Like, he is above league average in OPS plus. It is not a ceremonial thing at all going on right now for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, he just straight up has been one of their better hitters this season, which is very cool to witness. I think that probably means a lot to him. And it's just a good spot for the Pittsburgh Pirates today. I like them for daily fantasy. We are using MJ Melendez as one of our cheaper guys. There are plenty of $3,500 guys there. Melendez, we know exactly what he offers. He is cheap power, low batting average. We'll toss in, we'll steal 10 bases over the course of a season. Feel pretty good about him being in the lineup. And then the aforementioned Giants right-handed guys are coming back to us. Craig, Jorge Soler, he's got outstanding power. He is a 40 home run guy in the right circumstance. It is crazy to me that he and his people decided to allow himself to sign with the Giants, probably the worst power park in baseball, which I guess the Marlins park is not particularly good for power either. But just a bit strange. You know, if I'm him, I'm like, hey, Chicago White Sox, can I come play in that bandbox for a year? Will you give me $21 million to come hit 41 home runs on a 41 win team? That might be kind of fun for everyone involved. But that is our daily fantasy lineup on DraftKings today.
Yeah, you know what's funny is that I know what you're saying, Davis, but I completely disagree on Soler. This is like the last contract he was going to get. And
how long is it?
3 years. 3 years.
Okay.
I mean,
that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, think about who he is at this stage of his career. And would it have been smart for him to buy another pillow 1-year deal, go back out there in free agency again? I don't think so, man. I personally, I think he did the right thing. I think he just I don't think you'll see him get another multi-year contract. He's going to play this out with the Giants, hit his 25 this year, hit his 19 the following year. The next year, they'll be trying to get rid of him. You know how these contracts go in baseball. So to me, that's my estimation. Not that your thinking is wrong. I agree. Any other park would have been better for him. But he went for the most money that he possibly could, which is why he signed with the Giants, because the Giants couldn't sign Judge, and they couldn't sign Correa, and they couldn't sign any of these guys. They had some extra money, and they threw it at Soler. All right, coming up next, it's time for us to dive into stolen base leaders in fantasy. Will this continue as the season goes on? Stay next.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
The bases are bigger, teams are stealing more, players are stealing more. And in particular, you kind of have to have this now in your fantasy baseball team or else you can't compete. And so Davis and I are going to dive into the first 60 or so games, 70 games of the season, who the stolen base leaders are and who they could be at the end of the season. And Davis, a great place to start is with Elly de la Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds, who still is on pace to have a great stolen base season, but definitely has slowed down a little bit. Like there was some notion that this guy's going to steal, Vince Coleman numbers, Ricky Henderson numbers, 130, 140 steals. How many can he steal? Can it be 150? Well, that has gone down. And right now he's got 32 on the season. Nothing wrong with this, by the way. He's still going to end up at least with 50 or 60, maybe 70 or even 80. But it's interesting that FanDuel has a line on this. So we thought we would explore it a little bit more. 80 plus stolen bases, Davis, is plus 280. I got to tell you, a month ago, this was minus money. This was minus money. And now, because of just his other part of his game, it's slowed down quite a bit. You could get 8-1 if he steals 100 bases. So I guess let's explore this a little bit, because I think social media too, fantasy owners really jumped the gun on thinking this guy was the next Acuna. That is not the case. He still may be a very good player, if not great. And by the way, maybe just what's going on is a little bit of a slow part of his season, but let's slow the roll here on an Acuna 30, 70, or 80 season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, the issue is Elly De La Cruz can't stop striking out. He leads Major League Baseball in strikeouts. He strikes out about 11% or about 32% of the time. Now he also takes some walks, so it's not like a guy who is striking out all these times and also completely unable to get on base. But when your batting average is lowered, it's just he's hitting 237. His OBP is still only 331. You really. For a franchise guy, you'd like that to be higher. Now, again, 22 years old, lot of time for Elly De La Cruz to improve, a lot of time for him to change the way he approaches things at the plate. I definitely would not bet this market of plus 280 for the 80 stolen bases. I think that is, I think I'd probably just leave that one be, let someone else take that one. But it is pretty interesting because I think whatever stance you had on Elly De La Cruz in the preseason for fantasy baseball, you could feel vindicated right now. So if you were a big Elly De La Cruz bull, you could be like, look, man, he's doing it. He's hitting 11 home runs. He leads baseball in stolen bases. He is driving in some runs. He's scoring some runs. He's kind of doing a little bit of everything. Like he's high up there on the player rater. And if you were, if you were not so much an Elly De La Cruz guy, you'd be like, oh, it's only a matter of time. He's killing you in batting average with 237. He's striking out 30% of the time. I'll just say this right now so we can have this for posterity here on the show. I'm betting on Elly De La Cruz, 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. Like guys like this get better. It's just the way things work. He is a genetically gifted human being. You can't train people to be the player that he is, and he's 22. Like he's going to get way better.
Yeah, very well said. I think on all accounts, I think it's a win if you bought him, and it's a win if you sold on him too. And I think at the end of the year, for fantasy purposes, it's going to be a win. It's just a question of what the Reds decide to do. Can they allow this sort of what's going on with him, striking out over 200 times in a season? It just doesn't happen that often from anybody in baseball. All right, now let's go to Bryce Terang, a huge fantasy surprise this year. Let's just call it what it is. Playing a lot of middle infield for Milwaukee, mostly second base, 21 steals, and has only been caught one time. Credit to the Brewers here for finding a player that can help us in fantasy and can help them win games. The Brewers, remember, they thought a couple of years ago, Davis, they had this guy, the future second baseman, probably like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Keston Hiura. Remember that name? Keston Hiura. This guy's going to be the guy, right? Then it's like, forget him. We got Colton Wong. I think they finally found their guy now in this guy.
Yeah, I think they did. And Terang had 448 plate appearances last year and was quite good. He got 26 steals last year, only the 6 home runs. He basically, though, I don't know what this guy did in between turning 23 and 24, because he is awesome now. He had a 585 OPS last season. He's up to 779. He has decreased his strikeout rate. He has increased his hard hit rate. He is hitting more ground balls and fewer fly balls. So I wonder if that's it. I wonder if the organization or his hitting coach was like, look, Bryce, we know everyone, launch angle, exit velocity, the track man, all this stuff. but maybe that's not your thing. Maybe your thing is just trying to be Luis Arias, more or less, like just get on base as much as you can. 336 OBP. He's batting 300. I mean, Bryce Terang, what a win if you have him on your fantasy team. Sadly, I mean, he's basically getting overshadowed in this stolen base stuff by Bobby Witt and by Elly De La Cruz.
Yep, he is. All right. The Rays found another serviceable player on their team. Jose Caballero, 21 stolen bases, 8 caught stealing, playing all over the diamond. Rays made an AL fantasy move, I would say, yesterday. A little bit of a surprise, letting go of Harold Ramirez, who's been a contributor for their team the last couple of years. Rays have been okay, maybe not as good as maybe some people thought at the beginning of the season, but just like they found their third baseman last year, they found now another middle infielder this year.
They did, and leads or is tied for the lead in the American League for stolen base. Weirdly, caught 8 times, so also in the American League for caught stealing. That does not feel like a very Rays thing to me. Does it to you? Like a utility middle infielder who they let steal, but also gets caught stealing. I suppose he makes up for it in other ways. He's above league average in OPS. He's an above league average defender at these positions, if you believe, defensive metrics to any serious degree. I mean, come on. How are we gonna do the American League steals section and not talk about my boy Bobby?
There you go. So have at it. 19 steals.
19 steals for Bobby while being an amazing defensive player, while being an American League MVP candidate. We're not talking enough about what's going on there.
All right, we'll look at the MVP next.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today on SportsGrid. The American League Most Valuable Player odds are heating up. In fact, it's getting real close. It seems like the long shots are falling back, and we've got several players now that are up to 5-1 over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, naturally, Aaron Judge is going to be the favorite at plus 140, but this is far from over. Juan Soto has now fallen back to plus 450. So who has moved up? Bobby Witt Jr. has gone from about 7 or 8 to 5 to 1. Gunnar Henderson has gone from about 6 or 7, 5 to 1. Kyle Tucker has fallen back to 12 to 1, and he's expected to be placed on the injured list. So I don't know that he's even in contention at this point. And Jose Ramirez, he could be my MVP every year, Davis. I don't know that he's going to win it, but you got to always have him on there because his numbers are so good every single year. But, he flies under the radar and just certainly I think he's one of the best players in baseball, but again, doesn't get the credit. So this can go in a number of different directions. Look, Gunnar Henderson's season is incredible. Witt is playing great baseball, but if Judge just does what he does, it's going to be hard to steal this one from him.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Aaron Judge doesn't get injured, if Aaron Judge, I don't even think he actually has to be this good, but if he is about 70 to 80% as good as he's been thus far, it's completely his award to win. The Yankees are very likely going to win the American League pennant. They're going to have the most wins in the American League, maybe even the most wins in all of baseball. I suppose we'll see kind of how the Dodgers and the Phillies end up with their season. But the Yankees are definitely the class of the American League. If you think that doesn't matter to voters, you are definitely wrong. They always prefer to give it to someone from the best team or one of the best teams. And Judge is also likely to lead the American League in home runs. That totally counts. I mean, we know so much about baseball right now is all about power. He'll probably have 100 RBIs. I wonder if he'll get to 100 runs scored. That'll be interesting. But yeah, he is going to lead baseball in many important categories. I think it's very likely that he wins. I definitely would not bet it though at these odds. I think these are terrible odds to bet into right now because there's enough of a risk that one of the guys who directly follows him, Witt, Gunnar, your boy Jose Ramirez, maybe, probably not. It's Soto, Witt, and Gunnar are the ones who can catch him. With basically, if Gunnar goes on a stretch like he's already had this season, there was a week where he hit 4 home runs, I believe. Like if he goes on a stretch like that, and we're going into the All-Star break, and Gunnar Henderson has, 67 RBIs and 30 home runs and 15 stolen bases, all of which, that's projecting, but he could do. And again, what if the Orioles go on a run and they end up having the best record? As of right now, they are only 3.5 games back of the New York Yankees, so it's definitely possible. If I was going to bet on one of these guys, it probably would be Gunnar.
Yeah, and again, the Orioles, look, they got some work to do to win the division. I think this is where the Witt conversation comes in. I think, Davis, if somehow the Royals were able to win the division, I could see a scenario where Witt wins the MVP. That's not to say that you can't win it on a wild card team. That's a ridiculous statement to make. But if the Royals were to win it outright, and Witt's numbers were, they got to pop up offensively a little bit more. Obviously, he's got to get to 30 home runs and 100 runs driven in, which I think he can do with 30 steals. I think then he becomes more of a serious part of the conversation. At least that's the way that I see it.
Well, for vibes based, like you want to sell yourself a story. Bobby Witt Jr. signs the contract extension in the offseason. The Royals win 91 games despite not having another star on the roster. Bobby's the only star on the roster. He hits 27 home runs, drives in 102 runs, scores 103 runs, leads the American League in stolen bases. You can definitely tell yourself a story. Now, I think it's a good story. I don't think the odds are fair, though. I think for me to bet that, I'd want that to be at 10 to 1, probably closer to what Tucker is listed at. I think that's a bettable number. It just feels to me like 90% of the time, no, 70% of the time for the rest of the year, one if Soto or Judge wins. It's just, and maybe that's just being a pessimistic Royals fan and feeling like the Yankees are kind of the evil empire. But that's how it feels for me.
You know what I want to see if they ever have it on FanDuel DraftKings, the betting market for top 3 or top 5 like they do in golf.
Yeah.
Because I would bet Jose Ramirez every year to finish top 3 or top 5. Never to win, but always to finish top 3 or top 5. We'll talk to Gray Albright next.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Well, we're in the heat of the fantasy baseball season. In our Saturday show, we have our guest contributor. It's always great, Albright from Razzball. He joins us bright and early every Saturday morning to give us his ideas as to what he's seeing in fantasy. Great to have you back here on the show. We're going to go through some potential buy low players. Let's get started. We'll jump right into it. We got a lot to cover. Pablo Lopez, who's one of my guys, as probably most people know. I am surprised. Pablo's ERA is what it is, 5.45 earned run average, coming off an incredible season last year, a great postseason last year. By the way, a great start to the season this year, too. His strikeouts are right where they are. I'm going to assume I'm just missing something here. And then all of a sudden, his ERA is going to go from 5.4 to 4.8 to 4.2 and then somewhere under 4. Am I crazy there?
Yeah, so, Pablo Lopez is not an easy one to really dissect, because if you look at his peripherals, you'll see, like, the strikeouts, like you mentioned, the strikeouts are totally fine. The walks are totally fine. The ERA, though, is just a total mess, right? Like a 5.45 ERA from a guy you probably drafted as an ace, that's killer. So if you dig into his numbers a little bit, it looks like he's not getting people to swing as much on balls outside of the plate. So if the ball's out of the strike zone, his numbers are down almost 5% on those pitches. And he's also, people are making better contact on pitches outside the zone. What that usually means is his stuff is just not being hidden as well, or he's tipping. So there's something going on here. Either it's tunneling with him, or there's a potential here that he's tipping pitches. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something here. Like, everything else looks fine. His velocity looks fine. His numbers just, like, they jump out when you dig low, and it's like, wow, like, something's going on here with him that I think he can come out of it, though. Like, that's the good thing is I'm not, like, I don't work for the Twins.
Right.
The Twins guys know what's going on. There's something obvious that they should be able to point to and say, like, hey, like, when you're getting set, You're making it clear that you're going with a changeup instead of a fastball. Something. There's got to be something here because his stuff looks really good still. It's just the numbers are not backing it up. So hopefully he can come out of it. I think I would go out and buy low on him. I really like Pablo Lopez still. I think he's probably one of the biggest buy lows out there.
I guess assuming that he finds a way to stop tipping his pitches and having a 5.45 ERA, because you can't get that solved, then we're having real troubles. We can move now to a guy who I would definitely say I would just be buying low on in any format, dynasty, redraft, whatever format it is. O'Neal Cruz hitting 247, 9 homers, 5 steals. Definitely not the middle infielding Cruz that most people are locked into in the NL Central, but I think a particularly great and interesting player. Are you still in on O'Neal Cruz? Do you think this experiment of a 6-7 shortstop has run its course? Where are you at on O'Neal Cruz?
I absolutely love O'Neal Cruz. He's like one of my favorite players. I see him, and I was in on him big time in the preseason. He's disappointed a little bit. Like the strikeouts are a little bit high, but they're always, a 6-7 guy. The strikeouts are going to be high because his strike zone is just so wide, and he's a free swinger. So yeah, but I really love O'Neal Cruz. He's so dynamic. He's able to, steal 30 bags, hit 30 homers, probably hit maybe 235, 245 in that range. The average will be a little bit low, obviously, but yeah, I'm a big O'Neal Cruz fan. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't go out and like try and acquire him in any league, like you mentioned, dynasty, redraft, whatever it is.
Gray, it was interesting that Davis and I were talking about this earlier in the show. I want to get your opinion on it before we get back to, some players in particular. Home runs are down pretty significantly. I believe there were only 11 last night, and there were a lot of games being played, a lot of low-scoring games being played. The pace is for less home runs than we've seen in about a decade in Major League Baseball, but the games are going very fast, and so I believe that is the end game for Major League Baseball. Is they simply don't want to see these 3.5-hour games anymore, so they've gotten to that. Is there any adjustment to make in fantasy because of this? And you can't predict it, Gray, because next year all of a sudden there could be more home runs. We just don't know.
It's a fantastic product when it's not. It's like that old joke. It's like the portions aren't big. No, the food isn't good, but the portions are big. It's the opposite with baseball. It's like the games aren't great, but they're fast. so there's that. I don't know. It's like every year we get a new baseball. It's hard to know what to expect from year to year. This year actually worked out well for me because I usually don't draft pitching very high. And right now, there's pitching everywhere. Besides Pablo Lopez, who we mentioned earlier. I mean, every pitcher, there's a good like 5 to 6 pitchers under a sub-2 ERA right now, and we're in June. That's crazy. There's no way. Like you look at guys, and you're like, Reynaldo Lopez seems pretty good, but he's not a 1.9 ERA pitcher. This is crazy. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't think there's no way to tell. Like when you're going into the year, there's no way to know if it's going to be a high offense year or a low offense year. You don't know which ball you're getting. Usually, I know they usually do studies on the baseball at the end of the year to see like what was, what the baseball was like, if it was like a quote unquote dead ball. And there were years like in, I believe it was 2022, they were using a dead ball. And then in like 2019, it was a really bouncy ball where the homers were way up. And I don't know if there's any way of knowing this beforehand though. Like, it's kind of like you're going in blind. Like, are the hitters, going to be overvalued because everyone is like, there's only like 15 good hitters in the league. Like right now, I know like Aaron Judge, And Aaron Judge, Jose Ramirez, who you mentioned in an earlier segment, there's certain guys that are okay, they're good. But then you have guys like Julio Rodriguez, where you're like, what, 4 or 5 homers? What is this? It's June. He's on pace for 17 homers. That's terrible.
All right, real quick. Jason Dominguez is back and healthy, recovering from this UCL injury. We've got Trent Grisham playing a lot here for the New York Yankees. This inflammation for Juan Soto at the major league level. Did they just say screw it and call him up relatively soon? I think he's only played in 15 games there in the minor leagues. But do we get Dominguez back, Gray?
I'm actually surprised we haven't seen him already. I would guess that he's back within maybe 2 weeks. He was good. I mean, he was already up. So it's not like, oh, will they start his service time or not? He was up last year, and he hit really well last year. 4 homers in 8 games. He did 4 homers in 10 games in AA during his rehab stint last week. There's no reason why he shouldn't be in the major leagues. And he looks like he could be a star immediately. So if he's out there on waivers, I would absolutely grab him in every league.
Yeah, I think that's the case. You may be right, Gray. I think it's in the next week or two they make the move. All right, great to catch up with you, Gray. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, Gray Albright of Razzball. We'll be back with Fantasy Reality next.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. We got 15 minutes left in our show today. We got to ask the big questions before we wrap it up here on the program. It's time for a little true or false, but instead of calling it that, we call it fantasy or reality. All right, let's start off with the home run ball. Home runs are down across the league, but not for Aaron Judge, who has 21 home runs on the season. So what is the pace? It's well above 60, but can he actually come to that number again? Let's find out. Fantasy or reality, Davis? Aaron Judge will hit more than 62 home runs this season. Is this fantasy or reality?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm just going to take the easy way out here, which is not my normal. Not my normal. I like to be a little bit more bold with these, but I am going to say fantasy. I mean, look, it's just a really hard task to accomplish, and Aaron Judge has he's had a couple small little nagging injuries here and there. Remember, he had the oblique strain a little bit earlier. If he spends 10 days out of the lineup, or if he plays 2 weeks through a sprained ankle, an X, Y, or Z, then he's not gonna get there. So I'm gonna say fantasy. I'm gonna say, Craig, I'm gonna call my shot here. I'm gonna say he ends with 53 home runs for the Bronx Bombers this year, but fantasy on getting to 62.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if 55 would have been a better number to set here, but you went under on that too. Yeah, I'm going to say fantasy as well. Again, there's just so many things that can happen over the course of a season. His month of May was historic. I don't know what his month of June is going to look like, but if it looks like the month of April, then he may not hit 50 home runs. So I think the easier bet here is just to say fantasy, but the Yankees certainly will be in it. They'll be in it in September. He'll be playing throughout the season. They ain't going to stop him from playing. And as long as he's healthy, he'll probably come close. All right, we talked about Jose Ramirez earlier in the show. All this guy does is hit, and all this guy does is finish top 3 in the MVP every single season. Now, Cleveland, the Guardians right now, are leading the division. Ramirez has 17 home runs on the year, is getting like no discussion whatsoever. On FanDuel, you can buy a ticket, and if you put $100 or $500 on Jose Ramirez and he wins the MVP, you're going to do very well at the end of the year. But the problem is he's got these popular names ahead of him. Fantasy reality, Davis. Jose Ramirez will receive an MVP. What are we doing here, Sam? Is this a first place vote or just a vote? Is it a first place vote? Okay, first place vote for AL MVP.
No. He will receive fantasy. He will receive 0 first place votes. Now, what he will do, Craig, is he is going to receive a ton of third place votes. He is going to get. Look, we've guys here. Here are some guys last season who got AL MVP votes: J.P. Crawford, Bo Bichette, Adolis Garcia. Jose Ramirez finished 10th in AL MVP last season. Yandy Diaz with some MVP. So yes, obviously he will get some. He is not going to get any first place votes. So the first place votes will be Judge, Witt, Gunnar, and Soto, and those will be the only guys to get first place votes. So I got fantasy.
I'm going to go reality. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say that a writer in Cleveland or someone in the division that covers a team is going to vote for him to finish first at the end of the season. Because, again, you're probably right. I think there are others that will finish ahead of him. And finishing 10th is definitely not the same as finishing 3rd or 4th, which I think he has a good opportunity to do. But I am going to say that somebody votes for him to win the American League MVP and recognizes how good he is. So I'll go against you on that one. Okay, the NL Central has certainly been up and down. Milwaukee has kind of led throughout. The Cubs were the team that everybody a few weeks ago was saying, all right, they're going to catch the Brewers, that's going to be it. But really, the Cubs have gone the other way. The Cardinals have gotten better. The Reds are starting to play better baseball. Unfortunately for the Pirates, I don't think this is their year again. Fantasy or reality, the Chicago Cubs will win the NL Central. What a strange year it's been for them.
It has been strange. I mean, just what a strange division in general. You've got basically, I suppose this is what happens when no team in the division is serious about spending money and no team in the division is serious about winning. Like the Cardinals are like, oh yeah, we're the Cardinals. We are going to win. We're going to be awesome playing things the Cardinal way, not giving out huge contracts, not being big players in free agency generally. Although, to be fair, the Arenado and Goldschmidt, additions were kind of well out of the ordinary, but the Brewers, the Reds, the Pirates, not big free agency players. You know what? I'm going to say I got fantasy here. The Brewers are just going to get it done. Look, they got NL MVP candidate William Contreras. Why not, right? Why not? Sure, the Brewers win.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to say yes to this recently, but I'm just not really feeling it. And now that the Cardinals are back in it a little bit, even though I don't think they're going to win it, I'm going to say fantasy. I don't think it's going to be the Cubs. I'm very disappointed with the way that this has gone. And by the way, listen, nothing against Craig Counsell, but Davis, I got to tell you, I think David Ross is going to get a managing job next year because it kind of seems like the same Cubs team. Like I don't see a lot of difference, and I don't think it was his fault. So I'm going to say fantasy along with you. All right, the Dodgers are on pace right now to win over 100 games, but not by a lot. Like this is not going to be that 110-win team that people thought at the beginning of the season. It ain't going to happen. Fantasy reality, Davis. Live win total on FanDuel is 102.5. We're going to say fantasy reality, they go over that, and they win 103 games.
Fantasy. I mean, again, this is kind of the same thing as the Aaron Judge home runs one. Like I'm just, if we did a betting market on this, if I could bet the sides of these, I would always win in the long term, just being the pessimist. So I will say fantasy. They win 98 games and still win the division.
Yeah, I'm going to say fantasy too. I mean, generally speaking, we discussed at the beginning of the year. You look at the bottom, you look at the top. On the bottom teams, you go over, and on the top team, you go under. Oakland is not going to only win 45 games. LA is not going to win 110. Too much variance over the course of the season. I will say fantasy as well. All right, coming up next, we wrap it up with the Sports Grid 60. So stay with us here on Fantasy Sports Today. As a reminder, tomorrow morning, Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker have some fantasy baseball and some fantasy football covered for you. We'll be back with more right after this. Great.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today. Before we get to some fantasy reality, the Toronto Blue Jays, boy, tough team to figure out. I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but they cut Kevin Biggio. Let him go. Gone. DFA'd. Blue Jays starting to play better, though. Yeah, I mean, gone. Finished. Done. Last time the Blue Jays scored in the first inning was on the 4th of May. Oh, my gosh. So not just a slow start to the season, but can't even score in the first inning.
Can't even score in the first inning. I mean, look, the obvious extrapolation there. People in sort of gambling Twitter, they love these no-run first innings, these yes-run first innings, the nerfy. Look, I got to be honest. I love to gamble. I love to chop it up. Not big on the nerfies. I just feel like in general that market maybe used to be exploitable, but it's definitely not exploitable now. Like by the time it makes it to the point that the Major League Baseball official account knows to like be making nerfy jokes, it probably, whatever edge you think you have is already baked in. And I mean, just in general, what a bizarre season for the Toronto Blue Jays. Their leader, I mean, Craig, I'd give you 10 guesses on their lineup. You would never guess their leader in OPS. It's Danny Jansen. It's 29-year-old. It's 29-year-old defensive catcher Danny Jansen leads them in OPS. Yeah, it's really nuts. I mean, Bo Bichette stinks. They cut Kevon Biggio, which is insane to me. George Springer with the old 597 OPS. Justin Turner, their big free agent acquisition, 40 years old, hitting 228. I don't know. Just what it just to me, I suppose it's sad because I remember that Bichette and Biggio and Vlad all come up and everyone's so excited and it just never meant anything. They never got anywhere.
No, I think it's over. I think the window's closing for them. All right, it's time for us to close our window here on the show. Here's the SportsGrid 60.
All right, I'm going to do my bit that I'm sure everyone is doing, where the Louisville police and the Scotty Scheffler camera footage has been slowly dripping out over the last month. Now we finally basically, I think, have all the related content. We just got the footage from inside the cop car as Scotty's being taken to jail. It is some of the most unintentionally funny content I've ever seen in my entire life. The arresting officer asks Scotty, says, "You must be pretty good to be on the PGA, right?" And it's, this is unbelievable. Craig, you know me. If I'm in that situation, I'm saying, don't you know who I am? I'm the literal best player in the world. I'm the number one. I win every week. And Scotty's just like, I'm pretty good. I'm all right. I'm a pretty good player. It's so funny. And I suppose the thing that ultimately allows all of this to be so funny is that it ended up not being a big deal. Like, no one got hurt. No one, Scotty had like a bad morning, didn't end up winning the PGA Championship, but like at the end of the day, not that big of a deal. Had something bad happened, had this officer broke his foot under Scotty's car or turned his ankle or something, then it would have been a different story. But like the fact that all of this just ended up being funny is great. And look, biggest golf story of the year, right? I mean, let's be honest.
It is,
the biggest golf story of the year for mainstream coverage, which is also pretty funny.
Yeah, the police officer did scrape his knee. I did see that. All right. We got word this morning that Caitlin Clark is not going to be part of Team USA's basketball team.
This is insane.
What in the world is going on here? I mean, the woman who has changed college basketball forever and has changed NIL deals forever and has changed the WNBA forever is not good enough to play on Team USA. I remember a day where Christian Laettner was on Team USA with Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley and Scottie Pippen and John Stockton. And I get it if they're saying, this is a merit-based decision. Like Kalia Cooper, I think, is the last guard on the team. She averages like 24 points a game. She's a great player. But let's be real. It's a horrible marketing decision to not have her on the team. It's really bad. Horrible, crazy decision. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
A story, I'm sure, for the rest of the day here on SportsGrid. That will do it for our show today. Thanks to Gray Albright for coming on the program. Thanks to Sam for producing. And, of course, for my co-host, Davis Maddock, I'm Craig Mish. That'll do it for our show today. We'll be back here next Saturday morning with our next edition of FST. More fantasy content coming your way Sunday morning. Joe Pisapia, Matt Stryker, same time, same place, 9 a.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on SportsGrid. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. We'll see you next week.